So I'd like to welcome you all to the 2025 compulsory race briefing for the 80th Rolex Sydney to Hobart Yacht Race. Firstly, as competitors, I'd like to thank you for your competition in the race and the fact that you've entered this race in, I think we have 130 on the line, goes to show the dedication of all of our sailors to the sport. Also, I'd like to just bring back from last year, we had the tragic loss of life of two of our sailors, Roy Quaden and Nick Smith. And this would be something which is very much on our minds that we've had, and the families of these two sailors. And I'd like to ask for a minute's silence out of respect and to remember that occasion. Thank you. We'll go through the normal run sheet, so the next thing is to look at the weather, and we have Edward Townsend Medlock from the BOM, to take the slides. Thank you.
Right, good morning everyone. Today's briefing is going to come in two parts. We're going to start with the marine safety component, which is going to show you where you can get all of the products produced by the Bureau of Meteorology for your forecast on the way down to Tasmania. Second part will be the weather briefing, which is about the weather you'll see from the 26th right through to New Year's Eve and the risks that might be associated with the weather going down. Starting with the marine safety. So first off, all of the forecasts on our website and the numbers I'm going to be providing you today are coming in the form of mean wind speeds as it comes to the wind. Mean wind speeds are calculated as 10-minute averages, and so you can have gusts up to 40% stronger than the winds quoted in this briefing and on the website. On top of that, any squalls that do form, which can still be higher speeds than quoted still. The thresholds that we'll be using, which are shown in the table down there, a fresh, strong storm force and hurricane force are going to be the typical values that we see when we're sailing. Nothing's of storm force or hurricane force for this particular weather briefing, but yeah, so fresh and strong is really what we're going to be thinking about. Next up, the other component of the forecast is the wave forecast, which the numbers are given as the significant wave height, which is just a number used for the height of the waves. But much with the gusts, within a 24-hour period, if you have a quoted significant wave height of 2 metres or whatnot, you might see waves up to double the size in the 24-hour period when you're quoted a significant wave height. Things that we'll be looking for during the weather component, things that you should be looking out for as you read the forecasts. The main threats as you make your way down to Hobart are thunderstorms, low pressure systems, cold fronts, which can bring some gusty winds and bad weather along with them, sea fog and water spouts, and maybe less likely, but tropical cyclones and any monsoon effects. But we'll be going through those in the weather, detailed weather section. Here are some of the marine weather services that we provide at the Bureau. So first things first, since we have a new website, I thought I'd show everyone where all of these new products live. They're the same old format that you're used to, they're just in a different spot on the website. If you're on the on the desktop version of the website, if you go to weather and climate, you'll see a subheading there for coasts and oceans. And on that page, there is a list of all of these products, which is what are issued for the coastal forecasts all the way down to Hobart. And they're all there, and most of them are in that old format rather than with the new website. So it'll all be nice and familiar to you, and we'll show some pictures of that as we go through. Only other thing to add is that if you're accessing this through a mobile phone, so not the app, but accessing the website on your mobile phone, it'll be under weather and climate, under that specialised forecast and observations, and then on that page it's under the coasts and oceans section. So weather and climate, coasts and oceans, it's where it all lives. Okay, starting with, we push out coastal water forecasts all the way from Sydney right through to the Derwent Estuary as you get down on the way there. They've actually changed where we're issuing it 4 times a year, 4 times a day, not 4 times a year, 4 times a day now. So every 6 hours, those will be updated with updated winds and waves, as well as any changes to warnings, although the warnings will be updated as required if things change dynamically. The coastal water forecasts still look like this. They provide you a weather situation, which provides the high pressure systems, the low pressure systems, the cold fronts, and tries to contextualize what the weather is, along with the wave forecast and the wind forecast as provided. The wave forecast is broken up into the swells and the wind component there, which can be helpful, particularly when they're coming from different directions. The warnings are also shown on this coastal forecast, but they will be the same as the warnings you see on the warnings page of the website, so they'll be updated at the same time. Once you're outside of the 60 nautical miles of the coast, which is where our coastal water forecast ends, you'll be referring to the high seas forecast for any information that you might be wanting to know. Most information about which way the winds are going, as well as the swells, and any gale force winds that you might be seeing out on the open water. And the other thing is high ocean wind warning. Similarly, for any dangerous weather you'll see out there on the water, if you're outside the 60 nautical miles of the coast, you'll be referring to this high seas ocean warning to provide you the information necessary in any dangerous weather while you're out there in the water. Other things to mention, Meta does still exist if you were a fan of that, but the link has changed, so it's now at this new link shown at the bottom. It used to be bom.gov.au/Medi, but now it's just Australia/Medi, so if you bookmark that page, you probably won't be able to get it to anymore, but it's at that new link. Similarly to the coastal water forecast, Medi is now updated 4 times a day instead of twice a day, so that's something new. But also on that Coast and Oceans page that I mentioned before, there is a similar kind of product to Medi that you can see there with all the swell and the wind information in just a slightly different visual format, but it's all the same information. So if you want to try that, you can use the new one as well. Okay, some more marine weather services. This is kind of high frequency radio and satellite communications. If you want to take a photo or something of all the different radio stations you can get our forecast from, it's all done through text-to-speech at all those things provided there. Through satellite, this includes those high sea warnings and forecasts, as well as high seas warning forecasts, as well as the coastal forecasts as well, if you don't have reception and just have radio. Another final option, most boats have good internet these days, but if you have slow internet for any particular reason, we do have this Marine Light page that still exists, which is a low bandwidth version of all of our forecasts, which can be used for slow internet. All of this is available on the Weather and Climate Coast and Oceans page, as I mentioned before, on the new website. All right, let's get to the good part. Let's talk about the weather. So, starting off, to contextualize the system that we're going to be dealing with from the 26th right through New Year, it's a fairly slow-moving high-pressure system that's starting out over Tasmania and quite slowly moving east over the next few days. To the start of the race is looking like it's going to be strong winds as we're on the eastern side of that high pressure system, looking like they're coming from the due south, which is going to bring some swells also from that direction. So the first thing to notice that could be a bit hairy is that as soon as you come out from the heads, you'll see some pretty big swells coming from the south, as well as strong winds, which warnings will be issued most likely. Then moving further ahead, you'll see a slackening of the winds as this high pressure does move to the east, as you kind of lie in that centre line of that high pressure system, which can make things obviously a bit more difficult with some of those lighter winds. And the winds will also turn from that southerly direction to more of an easterly direction as the race goes on. Again, this system is pretty slow moving, so it'll be several days of southerly and then turning to easterly gradually, and then eventually turning back to a northeasterly and northerly direction by New Year if people aren't reaching the end yet, but I'll be pushing this forecast all the way out to New Year's Eve for that reason. Also, just to note, there is a new thing in the modelling that just appeared today, sort of amongst all the models of a low pressure system that might be forming near Tasmania on the 31st. I'm sure many of you will be finished the race by then, but if you're considering coming back or if you're still racing by the time it gets to New Year's Eve, there might be some heavy rain around Tasmania, as well as some gale force or strong winds. But I'll go into the details of that once we actually get to that part of the briefing. These are the main things I'm going to be talking about in this weather section. Right. So, looking at the systems. So these are the current forecast of where this high pressure system is going to be on the 26th and the 27th. As you can see, it's sitting over Tasmania and then just slowly drifting to the east, and it's going to be the main thing that we're focusing on. You can see further west a cold front. It's not going to be so much of an influence in this race given how slow these features are moving, but it does contribute to that development of that low pressure system over Tasmania that is a lot later in the race, closer to New Year's Eve. But yeah, the main feature we're going to be looking at is that high pressure. Starting off, here's the race start. So within the harbour, we're looking at winds fresh coming from the south, around that 15 to 20 knot range as you come out of the harbour. On top of that, once you get out of the heads and into the open water, you'll see the winds strengthening to 20 to 25 knots over that open water, with gusts, of course, being higher. And coincident with a swell coming from the south, as you can see, 2 to 3 metres. Hazard surf warnings probably going to be issued on the 26th as well, just to emphasise the point that these swells are somewhat dangerous. Also worth of noting that the high tide's at 1:09, so you'll be sailing out during high tide out of the harbour. Also relevant, while you're in the harbour, although the southerly swell probably can't get into the harbour itself, there is a smaller swell component coming from the northeast. That's only about 1/2 metre that might filter its way into the harbour, so just something worth noting. Weather-wise, it's looking like it's going to be a nice day with just a few clouds around, but just noting the chance of a shower on the 26th. As it gets to more the afternoon and we just extend further down the coast, you can see it's a pretty uniform south or south-southwesterly winds right down the coast during that first kind of afternoon to evening of the race. 20 to 25 knots with that swell continuing. The period of the swell is around that 9 to 11 seconds, so it's quite mature swell. It's coming from a system that's quite far to the south, but it's being added to, of course, by these winds, increasing the wind wave component of these waves on top of it, hence the waves being around that 2 to 3 metre range. Still chance of a shower during this time, but it's looking like a pretty nice day, all things considered. Then moving on to the 27th during the morning. So this is the Saturday morning. We're looking at the winds on the easing side of things as we go into the latter days of the race, owing to the fact that this high pressure system is going to be moving on top of the boats by some point later on the 27th or on the 28th. And as a result, we get a drop off of the winds. As you can see, 10 to 20 knots, south to south-southwesterly, and the swell as well. The swell remains the same, but the total wave height is going to decrease, given that the winds will decrease as well. So we're dropping off to 1 to 2 metres with those decreasing winds. Still, fairly nice weather, just a chance of a shower while you're out there, mostly cloudy. Then going into the afternoon of Saturday, we'll see the winds could pick up a little bit from the southwest over the south coast, as you can see, and depending how far out you are from the coast, you might see some stronger winds still catching on with that eastern side of the high. But the closer you are to the coast, kind of the weaker the winds generally get during this time, particularly along that New South Wales coast. As you can see about the Bass Strait, we see those similar winds. Of course, inside the Bass Strait itself, you get some of those weaker winds, but if you're still outside, once you go around the corner, you'll still see some fresh or strong southerlies over that period. Strong warnings are likely to be issued across the New South Wales coast, as well as eastern Tasmania during this time. Still, the weather's looking pretty nice during this time, just a chance of a shower. Then moving on, you can see things weaken significantly by the time we get to the 28th. With those winds dropping off to 5 to 10 knots and gradually turning east as this high pressure moves across the southern parts of the Tasman Sea. And Tas Coast develops a bit more of a stronger winds of 10 to 15 northeasterlies. It is important since, normally if you have a westerly over Tasmania, things can get a bit difficult with the mountain range on the eastern side of Tasmania, but the winds are coming from the east in this particular scenario, so you're not going to have so much of those land effects unless you're very, very close to the coast. The swells are also remaining kind of a south to south-southeasterly during this time, still a mature swell from that system before, but it's also worth noting that there is a westerly swell component that's making its way through across southern Tasmania, which could make the sea state quite confused as you actually make your way into the Derwent over the southern of Tas at this time, so something to keep an eye out for. But this time, since we're under the centre of the high, there will be clear skies. Then 29th December, so moving on. For those that are still going, we've got some easterlies building in and, of course, funneling through the Bass Strait, so it might be a bit stronger around the Bass Strait at this time, particularly at the mouth of the Bass Strait. The swells remaining pretty much the same, but that westerly swell component, making its way in a bit stronger, particularly over the southern Tas as those people make their way into the Derwent. With the clouds also beginning to build up again as we do get onto the western side of the high, and there's a bit of a trough seems to form. Then moving on, as we go further into the forecast, the uncertainty grows. So I'm just showing 2 pictures here instead of 1. You can see that's still fairly consistent between these 2 major global models. We've got the Australian on the left and the United States on the right at this time on the 30th of December. And you see the winds strengthening as a north or a northeasterly across the Bass Strait and Tasmania. Maybe give you a speed boost while you're making your way down there. The waves similarly are developing over eastern Tas. Now, because of these winds, you have a southerly swell component still, but it's actually going to be dominated by the wind waves coming from the north. So you'll see that confused sea state with swells coming from the west, the south, and the wind waves being driven from the north on this time while you're in eastern parts of Tasmania, with that competing swell from the west, as mentioned. Still clear skies and some high cloud during this time. Last but not least, all the way to New Year's Eve. This is the development of that low pressure system over Tasmania. You can see there's a bit of model disagreement between the two, but there's a chance of seeing some gale force winds and some westerlies funneling through the Bass Strait, as well as on the eastern side of Tasmania as this low pressure system does form. So something to look out for, maybe if your boat's there in Tasmania or you're making your way home by this point, worth noting that this weather system might be on the way. Last but not least, just showing another picture of what the models are doing with this low pressure. You've got the isobars in the black there, and then the colours here just representing the possible rainfall. There's the chance of seeing some pretty heavy rainfall on the 31st during this time for this particular weather system. The forecast as you get into Hobart, it's looking pretty nice, not looking like too much rain or anything like that. So there's not really much to comment on here for the Hobart forecast. And the last thing to mention, or the last few things to mention, are the currents as you make your way down. East Australia current kind of breaks up before we get to Sydney at this particular time, but there is a pretty nice looking eddy over between Jervis Bay and Montague Island. That's around that 1.5 to 2 knot value in terms of the speed coming from the north to the south, which might be able to be used. Just note that since there's a pretty strong current combined with the swells coming from the south, the sea state might get a bit confused around this south coast area during this time. There's also that other eddy over eastern Tasmania, which might also be able to be used with a little bit less strength in the strength of the current. And this is just the same picture, but just showing the temperature. You can see that the centre line of that particular eddy that we're using is around 24 degrees if you're looking for it while you're on the south coast there. Right, high tide for restart, as I mentioned, and the tides are there for the dates you might arrive in the Derwent. And that's the summary. Enjoy, have a fast and safe race, and thank you very much. Enjoy. Good luck.
I'll just ask if there are any questions for Edward before we move on. Okay, so now I'd also like to introduce Lisa Knott from Transport New South Wales, talk about the maritime exclusion zones and so forth for the harbour management. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to go over the waterway exclusion zone and some of the temporary restrictions that we have for the start of the race to ensure that you guys have a safe passage out of Sydney Harbour. The exclusion zone that you can see up on the board here, the lighter blue-grey area, that is the exclusion zone area that will be marked by yellow inflatable buoys all the way around the perimeter. The exclusion zone will be activated at 12 o'clock and will be active until 2:20 or until all the competitors are clear out of the harbour. From 11:30 a.m. we have a 6 knot no wash restriction that's in place. That's shown in the darker shade of blue surrounding the exclusion zone, and the red crossed area is referring to a no passive craft restriction that we have in place as well. So there'll be maritime, water police, marine rescue vessels, approximately 30 to 40 vessels out there patrolling the area. We'll all be out there from about 11 a.m. We request that as the competitors come out, that you guys are inside that exclusion zone area by 12 o'clock to assist us in managing that the spectator areas outside the boundary. To ensure that we can have safety for you and the spectators, if you are required to exit outside of the exclusion zone area after 12 o'clock, we just request that you do so through the southern boundary line where there's less spectators, and we request that you do so at a safe speed. The other thing is obviously make sure that your Rolex flag is displayed on the backstay so that our vessels out there can recognise that you guys are a competitor. That's it. So thank you for your time this morning and hope you all have a safe race.
Thank you, Lisa. And now from ANSA, we have Daniel Gillis, talk about race management. Thank you.
Thanks and good morning all. My name's Dan Gillis. I'm currently the manager of Joint Rescue Coordination Centre in Australia. No doubt on Boxing Day morning you'll all be very focused on preparing for the race and getting underway. So if I could get you please today to take a moment to think about safety and actions in the event of an emergency whilst you're in the race. The Joint Rescue Coordination Centre operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and will be resourced throughout the day with 6 search and rescue officers and SAR mission coordinators and 4 at night time. We'll respond to all emergency beacon detections and broadcasts, and any beacon alerts that we receive will be treated as distress unless we receive information to indicate otherwise. When we're responding to a distress alert, AMSA or police search and rescue authorities may request immediate response or assistance from other race vessels in accordance with sections 8.2 and 8.3 of your sailing instructions. So if you could please ensure you're familiar with those instructions, which are taken straight from the International Aeronautical and Maritime Search and Rescue Manual, Volume 3, as well as Appendix 1 of the SAFE, and Section 36 and Appendix 1 of your sailing instructions, which relate to distress alerting, search and rescue procedures, and distress and safety communications. In terms of genuine emergencies, as well as inadvertent distresses associated with emergency beacons, if you are required to abandon vessel or evacuate for any reason, your EPIRB really is your lifeline and the best way of locating you at sea. If you do have to activate an emergency position indicating radio beacon, please make sure that you have it attached via the lanyard. If you're in a raft, it is best deployed in the water and attached to the raft via lanyard. However, if the seas are extremely rough or there's a risk of that lanyard breaking, keep the beacon inside the raft with you, but try to keep it upright as it will propagate best when it's upright. If you do inadvertently activate a beacon and you're aware of that, you should hear a audible tone coming from the beacon, as well as see a strobe or flashing LED for a personal locator beacon. If you could let us know as early as possible. As I said, we will treat every beacon alert as a genuine distress incident until we can determine that it is not, and that will involve tasking of aircraft and surface assets to provide assistance. If you're using your PLB, which should all be registered, and we should have details of all of those, and be aware that you're associated with the race if we receive an alert from one of those. Attach it to the upper portion of your body if you can. They are designed so that they will propagate best with the radio antenna pointing directly upwards, as you can see in the image. And ensure that you are attached to the beacon via a lanyard. As I said, this really is your lifeline if you're in the water, and it's the best way for us to locate you. If you're in a group, it's not necessary to activate every PLB. If you activate a dozen PLBs all at once, it will interfere with aircraft's ability to effectively home you using the analogue homing frequency, which is in all of these beacons. It will help us if you activate 2 at once, because it will indicate to us that it's most likely a genuine distress as opposed to an inadvertent alert. However, any beacon alert will be treated as a genuine distress incident until we get information to indicate that it's not. Obviously, if you're in a group and separated from the group, activate your PLB. If you do activate an EPIRB or PLB, regardless of whether it's an inadvertent or a genuine distress, and for some of you, please also be aware that EPIRBs fitted in cradles, some of those which are the float-free type, will activate if they're dislodged from the cradle and become wet. So if you get contacted by us about a beacon alert, please check that your beacon is correctly housed in the cradle and try to dry it off as best as you can. It's the best way to get those deactivated. You will hear an audible tone and a strobe light from EPIRBs and flashing LED from some PLBs. that distress message will be relayed from the beacon via satellite back to JRCC Australia. If it's a GPS encoded beacon, we will also receive GPS positions for the beacon. If not, they'll be satellite derived positions, and it will take a few minutes for us to resolve that position to a really accurate location. Please check that your registration details are up to date. We receive a list of all of your beacons. No doubt you'll be made aware if any of your beacons have not been registered correctly. All of those beacons will be loaded into what our system calls a special event so that we can associate you with the race and notify race control and get as much information as possible about the nature of distress and assistance required. We will coordinate a search and rescue response from JRCC Australia following any beacon alert. It's a very cooperative arrangement in Australia for search and rescue. Police are also a search and rescue authority. The underpinning principle for search and rescue is best placed, so we may transfer coordination to police or maintain coordination at JRCC Australia. In either case, if you're on the vessel and in distress, you won't see any difference. In terms of SAR assets that may be responding to you for aircraft, the aircraft in the top left is AMPS's Challenger rescue aircraft. There are 3 of those located in Cairns, Perth and Essendon in Melbourne. If required for you, we will task the Essendon jet aircraft. It is drop capable. It can drop stores. Those stores will be dropped from a variety of different size containers depending on what the stores are that you need. It is attached to 300 metres of trailing line with a weighted line on the other end of it. We won't try to land the weighted assembly or the stores on top of you. You will see the trailing line come down and hopefully it will land over your vessel. If not, it will land in a location where you'll likely drift over it. So keep an eye out for that. You're unlikely to see an emergency drop of stores during night time because lowest safe altitude is 1,500 feet, which is too high for an accurate drop, and you're also unlikely to see the trailing line at night time. The other aircraft that we will likely respond with from an aviation point of view are usually Augusta 139s, the type you can see at the bottom right, which is the one operated by Toll. Those are not auto-hover equipped aircraft and they will not winch you at night time. It's just not safe for them to do that. So if you are in an emergency at night and require evacuation, you'll most likely see an aircraft overhead vectoring surface craft in to assist with rescue. All of them are fitted with homers so that they can home beacon alerts, the analogue frequency from your EPIRBs and PLBs, and all of them are equipped with marine VHF radios, so they should be able to communicate with you, as is the Challenger jet aircraft. If you are required to engage with rescue aircraft, whether it's the fixed wing or a rescue helicopter, please make sure you have someone monitoring VHF channel 16. I know it gets pretty noisy when a helicopter gets overhead and sometimes your radio sets are not on deck, so could you please make sure you've got someone monitoring. Follow directions from the helicopter. If you're able to make way, they will give you advice likely to make way into the wind, but get those directions either from the Challenger jet rescue aircraft, which may be hovering overhead and guiding the helicopter in, or from the helicopter directly. Please stow all loose equipment and remove or frap and secure any sails. It will get very windy. There's quite a bit of rotor wash from a 139, so prepare for a fair bit of downwash and secure anything that's loose. If possible, steer into the weather, but as I said, you will get instructions on VHF from rescue aircraft. Turn your radar onto standby if you can and do not use HF communications. That will interfere with their ability to home. And be ready to launch a life raft. If you need to evacuate somebody, winching from a yacht is extremely dangerous because of the risk of entanglement. You may be required to put somebody out into a raft for them to be winched out of the raft. Medical assistance. If you do require medical assistance or advice, in the first instance it would be best for you to contact race control. In serious cases where medical assistance or evacuation is required, race control will advise JRCC Australia. We operate a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week telemedical advice service, and we can get a doctor in touch to provide advice. We can also assist with medical evacuation or dropping medical supplies by our Challenger jet aircraft. Obviously the Challenger jet can't do the evacuation part, that'll be a helicopter, but the jet can drop emergency medical stores to you if required. Once again, those operations are unlikely to happen at night because of the lower safe altitude and the fact that you probably won't see stores being dropped for you at night time. In serious or really urgent circumstances, you can contact JRCC Australia direct or contact 000 if you have reception and are able to do so. In either case, all of that information will come back to JRCC for coordination of a response. In terms of your return voyage, we do see search and rescue incidents for vessels on the return from Hobart. Could you please ensure that beacon registration is up to date and that your emergency contacts on shore are aware of how many crew are on board and any special requirements that they might have? That information is critical to search and rescue planning. The difference between 4 and 5 people on board a vessel can be the difference between 1 or 2 helicopters responding. So we really need to know how many people are on board, voyage details and any other information about your return voyage. We're running a little bit over time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them now, but I will also be here right through until midday. So if you want, I think I'm the only one dressed like this today. Should be easy enough to spot my head. Just come and see me at any point. I'm happy to answer any questions. But if there's anything now that you want to ask for everyone's awareness, please feel free. Nothing? Okay, thanks very much. That's it from me then. Do come and see me if you have other questions. Otherwise, I wish you all the best for the race and have a great Christmas tomorrow.
Thank you, Dan. And now we've got Lee Goddard, Race Committee Chairman. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Adam. Good morning, all. I'm Lee Goddard, and Chair of the Race Committee and the On-Water Race Director. With me, I've got David Kellett, of course, our Deputy Chair and also Head of our Communications Subcommittee, Noel Cornish, Mark Pavillard, and Stephen Mannering's just listening in from Tasmania, from the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania, as your committee. Also, just want to acknowledge straight off Tara and the sailing office and the great support they provide myself and many of us as we lead up to this race. Welcome everybody to the compulsory briefing, as is the weather brief at 8 a.m. on Boxing Day. And there is another iteration at 11 o'clock, and of course this is being recorded as well. So the great race, as we know, it is on. 129 starters for this, the 80th edition, and it is a terrific fleet. Great variety of experience, sizes, and competition as well. Acknowledge our Commodore, and of course Sam will be at sea this year again. The CYC, the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania. Thanks BOM, thanks AMSA, thanks obviously our New South Wales Maritime, but also our Water Police, New South Wales, Tasmania, Victoria, the media, and most importantly, I acknowledge you, the competitors. Mind you, our role is to maximise participation, and it's terrific we've got 129 yachts this year, but to make each and every race safe, fair and fast. The race committee and the race management team of volunteers, we are experienced, we're engaged, and we are independent. We have numerous ocean races and of course Sydney Hobart's between us, and we also have significant search and rescue experience as well. And with this broad range of backgrounds, as you should be, we are risk aware, not risk adverse. And our starting point is that while we are fair, we are black and white in terms of expectations regarding race discipline to make sure that the race is managed correctly, and those who participate do so with the very clear directions as per the notice of race, the SIs, which I'll re-highlight again today, and of course our sailing rules. And I remind you, they change often throughout the year for good reason. So you need to be up to date and fully aware, the skippers and the navigators. We have contingency plans for the full range of emergencies. It goes without saying, last year we went literally through that full range of emergencies, and we test for and assume the worst conditions, not least the weather, communications, and serious isolated and serious multiple incidents which are all occurring at the same time, which of course we did see last year. We've learned from these precedents, and we've adapted to changing regulations. So I thank all of you owners and participants for your cooperation, and in particular for your regulatory compliance. It can be painful going through it, but it is important and we do appreciate it. And of course we do have a technical committee in place to oversee IRC compliance, and we also have a world-class international jury now in place. As usual, and as briefed, and with Dennis, our principal race officer here, it will be an exciting race start at 1 p.m. on Boxing Day. with a large fleet across 4 clearly promulgated lines as managed by the PRO. Mind you, there will be no general recall. There will be individual recalls, but you'll not be identified until 5 minutes until after the start. And I remind you again, it's a long race. There's still 628 nautical miles to go after that race start. As I understand it will be a running start with an outgoing tide. So there's other complications there that you need to consider across a very big fleet. Reporting at the start, allow the fleet room as you approach the committee vessel, on VHF 72, and have full consideration and situational awareness while manoeuvring. At the start, the media will be close to the racing action, as you would expect, and this will be on a non-interference basis, but there may be movements between some boats. And mind you that boats are not allowed to broadcast the start of the race live. The Jackson, that big vessel, will be the only spectator vessel boat in the exclusion zone, and it will follow the eastern exclusion zone line, and they will stay and should stay well clear of you, but you need to be aware that vessel will be in the exclusion zone. Following the club's internal annual review, and importantly after the independent review into the 3 most serious incidents in the 2024 Rolex Sydney to Hobart race, I want to remind you of the things that we have changed, and it is worth me going through this so we are absolutely clear. We obviously have conducted a downward sailing seminar prior to the Noakes Sydney to Gold Coast yacht race. Not sure how much you'll need that this year, but you need to be very much aware of that. And of course, that seminar was attended by over 650 people, and it's still available to all of you to watch on the CYCA TV. And of course, a link has been sent to all of you who registered for this race. The CYC has recorded and provided a communications seminar provided to the 2025 race, noting there has been changes. And it's not just in terms of how you use a communication, but the technicalities, and particularly how you fix or work through problems. And sometimes you do need to fight through communication problems. I remind you, a minimum 50% of the crew, including this language, the person in charge. The person in charge. And it's now required to complete the qualifying race or qualifying passage on the boat entered unless exceptional circumstances apply, and that will be at my discretion. And the previous requirement for 50% crew to have completed a Cat 1 race has been updated to require this within the past 10 years, and all crew must now have completed a Cat 2 race or higher within the past 5 years. And the minimum number of crew required to hold a current safety and sea survival course, the SSC certificate, has increased from 50% to 60%. And of course, AIS man overboard devices, and it goes without saying how they proved their worth last year, are now mandatory for all crew in Category 1 and 2 races, in addition to your PLB or personal locator beacons. And of course, double-handed entries must now carry a minimum of 2 3-clip tethers. Of course, this has been checked, and the race entry system has been upgraded in stages to simplify documentation. It's worth me just going through that to remind you we did a review, we've listened to that review, we've taken on those recommendations, and now we all have to enact it. I remind you that the technical committee will be conducting IRC spot checks, both prior to, and some of you have already been subjected to those, and following the race finish. And boats should be prepared for inspection from the time of finishing up until 12 hours after the individual's boat finish time. And I, with the team, will decide who gets inspected. If you are found to be non-compliant, you may be subject to protests by that technical committee, and that technical committee alone. Position reports are to be conducted via satellite phone. As we know, we are satellite completely now, by SMS to the Hobart Race Control mobile number twice daily at 0635 and at 18:35 hours. Boats will have a 60-minute window to submit their position at these 2 times. For situational awareness, and remind you, for your situational awareness, the position data will be emailed to all boat email addresses and may be published on the official website. Boats that do not comply within the hour will be contacted after the 60-minute window to be notified that Hobart Race Control has not received their position. Green Cape report. Boats are required, as you know, to make a satellite voice call to Hobart Race Control when in the vicinity of Green Cape to make their declaration in accordance with the sailing instructions. This call must come from a satellite phone on board that meets the Australian Sailing Special Instructions, i.e. a satellite phone incorporating voice and SMS capability, retained in a securely fastened mounting connecting to the vessel's electrical supply, equipped with a permanently located external aerial and continuous coverage for the race area. I'd say this because I want to make sure everyone understands that is an absolute requirement, and we want to assure that you'll still have that requirement as you go past Green Cape. And the boat must confirm that this satellite phone is operational and fit for purpose. Please note, the Green Cape reports are on a dedicated number, and this is different to race control. In fact, at race control, we have two separate areas who are monitoring that surge as we have boats going through the Green Cape area. Retirements and incidents. A boat that retires or requires assistance must call Hobart Race Control on the dedicated mobile number. This number is monitored, of course, 24/7, and of course I monitor my number, as does Tara as well. Following initial phone call, Hobart Race Control may communicate with the competitor via satellite phone SMS. Should there be, and that's important, look at the sailing instructions and your obligations to be listening in for those calls as well. Should there be an incident and the race control needs to contact multiple yachts, an SMS will be sent to boats in the vicinity that may be able to assist, and satellite phone calls may be required. And of course, relaying via satellite phone, but in particular locally by VHF 16 as well. All sat phone users that do not use a +88 number, i.e. use a cell phone number and Starlink, via Starlink, must ensure that the test was carried out on the boat using the satellite connection and not the cellular network. I know that sounds obvious, but please make sure that occurs for the navigators. A boat may not protest another boat for an alleged breach of NOI, such as media rights. If there's any issue, it will be dealt with by the race committee through myself, and we will make the protest if it's actually valid. If you have a problem reporting and it's scared, you must make every effort by VHF or satellite phone or through another vessel, or call race control or myself on my mobile. As I said, we'll be available throughout the duration of the race on the mobile. I get a lot of calls in the middle of the night, get a lot of conversations, which is fine, but I actually won't thank you for not calling me. So don't think you're going to be waking me up. I need you to call me, especially if you think you haven't got a message through or if there's an emergency situation coming through. As you know, you must at all times keep a proper listening watch on VHF channel 16. That's critical, especially if we have to relay information. It is absolutely critical. And you must report wind strengths and wave heights when wind strengths exceed 40 knots. We've heard the forecast, but as Ed will tell you, there's a good possibility you'll still get the odd gust above 40 knots, and we must know it. And mind you, you must have the correct but minimum requirement for safety numbers at all times. For example, if someone gets seasick, you offload them, you've still got to have the same, you've got to meet the requirement. Any crew change must be advised and acknowledged by the sailing officer, not just on water, but right up to the race over the next 48 hours. It is frustrating when we do find out that potentially people have been changed out or not sailing before a race starts. So please advise us. Mind you, if you do decide to discontinue racing, offload crew, those safety requirements still are required. When a yacht retires to port, you must be self-sufficient. We'll do what we can to help, but this may include arranging for shore crew to travel and provide any required support. I want to make sure we set the right expectations here. We don't have personnel stationed down the coast at every port or every kind of entry point. We'd like to do that, but that's just not a reality. It's just not feasible. So while we have staff and volunteers available potentially, you need to be self-sufficient. It's very important. And there will be retirements this year. There will be retirements, and it could be your boat. Declarations must be made in the cases outlined in the sailing instructions and with the time limit for lodging a protest, and please ensure that you receive a report. And I remind you that Marine Rescue will be continuing to monitoring VHF Channel 16 throughout any case of incident. And I remind you, if you do retire, please continue to participate in SCEDs and advise when you are in port. And this is usually done very well, so thank you for that. Also, a reminder to crews, particularly our double-handed crews, regarding personal safety equipment with less people on board. Of course, there's less redundancy for equipment. Please ensure you've considered this. Please ensure you have knowledge in all the functionalities of your personal equipment and you've tested, serviced them regularly and including the next 48 hours. Different PLBs may communicate activation differently, successful or not. Make sure you're fully aware. And please check your PFDs. Inadvertent triggering of EPIRBs and PLBs, no dam, this, for AMSA, there's no crying wolf. Every PLB, EPIRB is real for them. And of course, we've got that 30-minute rule. If we don't have even if it's inadvertent, that Challenger aircraft, those helicopters you saw, and potentially defence assets will be deployed. So it's very, very important. That's why we take it very seriously. And if need be, we'll be punitive in terms of our response if an activated PLB or an EPIRB is not actually then reported to us, or when we're trying to communicate with you, we actually don't understand whether it is real or not. The assumption is that it is real. Man overboard, obviously you need to have good VHF communications, external, you need to broadcast early, all your life-saving device, deal with the circumstances. We are ready to help, and of course, as we've seen in the recent years, the fleet is ready to help as well, and that's been outstanding. Sea life, whales, dolphins, sunfish, we know they're out there. We ask you to report any incidents with sea life at the first available opportunity. Obviously, there is extensive technology now to assist you in detecting. We have medical professionals on call. Please ensure, though, that you have fully considered your plans for dealing with and reporting medical emergencies, and be aware of any pre-existing medical emergencies for crew members. Note the sailing instruction on drones and simply comply. Competitors should be very familiar with the anchorages available, including in Hobart. And as mentioned before from AMSA and DAM, consider early your delivery home plan and inform your next of kin. We'll assist you to a certain extent, but that's your responsibility. And we'll talk about general notices and paperwork. Final thing I just want to really emphasise, you've seen the weather forecast. It's going to be cold, it's going to be wet, it's going to be bumpy, people are going to get seasick, and there will be incidents. And there probably will be injuries. So I want to remind you of that. It's going to be a cloudy, dark night. So you, as skippers, the person in charge, as boat owners and navigators, prepare yourself well for this. There will be retirements, not only because of technical breakages, but simply because people are going to get seasick or uncomfortable, etc. as well. So you know your teams, know your crews. As I said, it's your decision to race, and you understand the risks. As I said, 2 to 3 metre swells, rough first night. Please consider all those contingencies. That said, the great race is on. It's the 80th edition, and enjoy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. Now from Tasmania, the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania have Perry Foster, our Finnish coordinator. Thank you, Perry.
Good morning, guests, commodores and distinguished yachties. The Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania is pleased once again to partner with the CYCA for the 80th Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. We're looking forward to seeing all of you in the Do It Again. A couple of things for noting as you get to the Hobart end of the race. The finish line. Details of the finish line are at clause 17 of the sailing instructions. The finish line is off the Hobart finish box at Castray Esplanade, Battery Point. For those who have not been to Hobart before, it looks very much like that. It's in place at the moment and waiting for you to finish. It's positioned between the White Empress Towers on the left and the cream CSIRO building on the right. We locally refer to the finish box as Castray Box or the Castray Finish Box. The outer end of the finish line is 300 metres from the box and will be marked with a yellow buoy and will have a flashing light at night. It's a long line. There is also an inner distance mark that must be left to port. If you're finishing at night, please illuminate your sail number on the port side to the finish box so the finish box can confirm your identity. Other races are also finished at this box. So we've got 2 other races finishing across the same line. And that's why it's really important that you identify yourself to the finish box. If you know you have engine problems on finishing, please give a call to race control prior to finishing, and we'd appreciate that so that we can make the appropriate arrangements to get you in and berth safely. Once through the finish line, radio the Hobart finish box as per the sailing instructions on VHF channel 81. Please don't contact Hobart Race Control, contact the finish box. Drop your sails and stand by for the escort vessel. This will be one of the RYCT patrol boats, probably a rubber duck. In busy periods, please be patient. A patrol boat will get to you as soon as possible. Observe all the directions from the skipper of the patrol boat and don't enter Kings Pier until you're instructed by the patrol boat. We want to facilitate a proper welcome for you. So during the operating hours of the Taste of Summer Festival, you will enter the dock via a short detour past Prince's Wharf, where you will receive a very enthusiastic welcome from those enjoying the festival. The Rolex Sydney Hobart fleet will be berthed within the Kings Pier Marina and in Constitution Dock, taking account of your yacht length and draft and suitable berths available. You've already been allocated a berth and you'll be directed to this berth by the patrol boat. You must proceed to your assigned berth, please. Most yachts berthed in the Kings Pier Marina area will be berthed alongside the floating pontoons. Some yachts 18 to 20 metres will be berthed alongside the Elizabeth Street Pier and they may be doubled up. Please have suitable fenders available. All yachts are required to have at least 2 fenders available and accessible when berthing. Please don't send your fenders down with the baggage. They must be accessible on the boat for your arrival at berthing. For those in contention for the Line Honours presentation berth, please make sure you have appropriate fenders on board and fenders with your support crew on the dock when you arrive. Constitution Dock. Yachts with a draft of 2.5 metres or less should expect to be berthed in Constitution Dock. Those yachts in Constitution Dock should be prepared for rafting up. You may be requested to deploy a bow anchor, so have your bow anchor ready as you enter the dock. Entering Constitution Dock requires the bridge to be opened by TasPorts. That may require yachts to be staged within Kings Pier Marina for a short time before the bridge is opened, so your cooperation is requested. The volunteers will endeavour to berth you as soon as possible. Please respect the volunteer crew berthing your vessel and accept the berths that's been allocated. Remember, these volunteers are giving up their valuable time for you, and a courteous thank you is always appreciated. The RYCT ribs will be available to assist you with your departure up until 10 a.m. on the 3rd of January 2026. So once again, see the TasPorts requirements in your info packs if you wish to remain longer than that. And that would require you moving to a longer term berth. Liaison volunteers, as per usual, the Race Liaison Centre will be in the Rolex Village and our volunteers will be there to help you with any queries, questions and directions. Once you're safely berthed, you'll be welcomed by our liaison volunteers. In exchange for your tracker, the volunteers will deliver some well-earned refreshments. You will also receive an envelope with New Year's Eve wristbands for friends and family and a quarantine bag. So, quarantine's a requirement in Tasmania. It's a requirement of Biosecurity Tasmania, and they require every yacht to dispose of quarantine items appropriately. Tasmania is a special place requiring unique biosecurity protection. Please use the quarantine bag provided to dispose of all fish and fish products, meat and meat products, fruit and vegetables, eggs and seeds. Biosecurity inspections will be carried out on the marina during this period, so please bag and bin quarantine items as soon as practical on your arrival. If you have any doubt, chuck it out. Quarantine bins will be around the village, including in the waste compound. If you need more quarantine bags, please see the Liaison Centre, they'll give you more. Baggage. A truck will transport your crew bags to Hobart. Please label each separate bag with a baggage tag before you put it in the truck. Your baggage tag or key tag must have your boat name, your name and your phone number on the key tag. This will ensure that all bags are easily sorted and stored for your collection in Hobart. A change this year to the baggage collection point, as you can see, it is the Hobart City Hall. It's just 1 block from Constitution Dock. This is easy to find. It's visible from the dock. Entry is on the western side of the City Hall, and it's down Marketplace, halfway down the side of the City Hall building. You'll walk past the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery, which is open during the Christmas New Year period, and all competitors and their families are welcome at TMAG. It's a good spot to drop into. The Glenorchy Rotary Club will once again be supporting the race and staffing the baggage collection area for you. They will be open for business from 6 a.m. to 12 midnight daily after the first yacht finishes, up until 6 p.m. on New Year's Eve. After that period, as they're closed on 6 p.m, the baggage for late finishers will then be available for collection at the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania at Maryville Esplanade, Sandy Bay. Also, please note that in the event of retirement from the race, you will be responsible for the return and transport of your bags from Hobart. Some final points. All power cords used in the marina need to be tested and tagged so they can be run safely on the walkways. That will be checked. So if you need to get a cord tested, please see the liaison centre at the Rolex Village. The prize giving, the official prize giving will again be in the Federation Concert Hall at the Hotel Grand Chancellor over the road from the dock at 3 p.m. on the 31st of December. Everyone's welcome. All yachts must vacate the marina by 10 a.m. on the 3rd of January. Skippers with delivery crews, please inform all delivery crew of these details. If you require extended berthing in Kings Pier after 10 a.m. on the 3rd, please see the volunteers in the Race Liaison Centre who can advise on availability of berths and provide further information for you. There is also information in your electronic nav bags regarding extended berthing. Any problems on any matters, see our friendly team in the Race Liaison Centre at the Rolex Village. They're there to help you. Guest privileges are facilitated for competitors in the race, so I encourage everyone to come down to Maryville Esplanade in Sandy Bay to visit the Royal Yacht Club. It's a short distance from the waterfront, and it's also the location of race control, the radio room, the communications area, and the international jury during the race. The support provided by the RYCT to this race is immense, and please support the RYCT in response. RYCT provides more than 260 volunteers for this event and some 2,300 hours of service to the race. So for a smaller club, this is a major commitment for us, and we ask for your support. During the race period, the RYCT opens its doors to competitors who are extended guest privileges at the club. The club will be open at normal hours throughout the race period. It's a great place for friends and family to await your arrival, or your crew to enjoy the scenery with our bar, outdoor deck and dining facilities. You can also access full club services on your return, such as fuel, water, gas, prior to your return delivery. On New Year's Eve, the bistro is open 6 p.m. to 9 with a formal masquerade party to 1 a.m, so please book ahead. The New Year's Day dock party will be conducted at the Royal from 12 p.m. with live music, and please use your guest invitation for reservations for that event. Please call us at the club to book for any of these events. If there is anything we can help you with, call the helpful staff at the RYCT. So finally, I wish you all a happy Christmas. Have a good trip to Hobart. Have a great race, stay safe and enjoy your festivities, and we'll look forward to seeing you in Hobart. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Thank you, Perry. Before we close, I just wanted to mention that out of respect from the tragic loss of life on the 14th of December in Bondi, I've asked 15 boats from the club members' boats, to pause at Bondi and make a tribute to the people who are from the Jewish community and our community who unfortunately were killed in the terrorist attack on that day. So as we pass Bondi, 15 boats will just spread some petals into the ocean at that point. And also I'd like to ask if anyone else would like to do the same, please join and make the same tribute. So finally, in closing, just let you know that there are copies of the division lists and the start line allocations at the back of the room. And I also need to just mention some boats which need to visit the sailing office, please. Arwen, Silver Fern, Wild Thing, Chimbera, Perplexity and Noah's. Also, I'd just like to ask there's a press conference now, and if the 100-foot skippers could also remain in the room for that press conference after this meeting's closed. So with that, once again, the club thanks you for your attendance and your support of the race and your competition. And have a safe race, have a great Christmas, and I'll see you in Hobart, if not before. Thank you.